Hi, this is Tech Chick with another tech tip this week. This time we're going to go over our orders data that we have been going through, and I want to show you how to use a pivot table and how to create a pivot table so you can use that pivot table to create pivot charts and graphs. So let's go ahead and get started. So you should be familiar with this, which is our spreadsheet that we've been working on. This is our orders data. And you can see our frequency table is there from the last example that we did. But one of the most important functions I think you can learn in Excel is a pivot table, because you're going to use a pivot table to arrange your data so that you can display it in a chart or graph to your executive staff, your stakeholders in your line of work. There will always be a reason to share data and share it in a graphical representation. So knowing how to make a pivot table is pretty important stuff, and how to arrange your data. So what I normally do when I do a pivot table is I create a new tab. We don't worry about labeling it right now. What we're going to do is we're going to go up to insert and say pivot table. Just click on that. And it's going to ask you for the table or the range. So we're going to click on the orders tab because that's where we're going to get our data from. And we're just going to select it all. So click in cell A1. Again, hold down Shift and Control, the Shift and Control button at the same time. Click the right arrow button to select the entire top row, and then click the down arrow button, and that will select the entire table for you. And then click OK. And then as you can see, when we do that, there are pivot table fields to the right. And what we're trying to do, or what we want to do, is we want to display this data in a graphical representation like this. So I did this earlier because I want to run through this. So what we're looking to do is basically show how many of our customers by customer tier. Remember, we organized our customers by tier. So bronze, gold, platinum, silver, titanium. And that was based again on our frequency table that we saw on the orders tab. So we said, if their order amount is like from 1 to 1,000, then they're bronze, or from 1 to 500, they're bronze, 500 to 1,000, it's gold, and so on. So we have our ranges on the orders tab that tell us, and I don't think we can go in there right now because we have to select our pivot table fields, but the frequency chart, frequency table, I guess, that we created shows those ranges: silver, bronze, gold, platinum, and titanium. And based on the amount of their sales, or the amount that they ordered, determines their tier. So based on their tier, what we want to know is how many customers in each tier are shipping their orders. So in order to arrange this data in a logical sense, to me, I immediately think that the customer tier should be a row. And when you're creating a chart or graph, the good thing about Excel is that you can play around with moving things. So if you accidentally, or you don't know how to arrange your data and you put customer tier in the column, let's do that actually. We're gonna change this up a bit. Let's put customer tier in the column, and then we're gonna put ship with a question mark because that's if they shipped or not, yes or no, in the row. And then we want to count uh the people that shipped. So we're gonna pull the ship question mark into value so that we know how many in each customer tier did not ship or did ship. So no is they did not ship, yes is they shipped. And honestly, even though other people might put customer tier as a row and ship as the column, which displays data a little differently, there's no right way to do this. It's just how you want to display your data. So I'm going to roll with this. And then what we're going to do to create a graph is we're going to highlight these values here. Because I don't really think that we necessarily need the total because we're just looking really for this information here. So I'm going to highlight, I'm going to click in A2, hold down my shift key, click in F2, keeping your shift key held down. And then I'm going to click in F4, and that's going to highlight the data I want to create a chart with. And now we're going to go into insert, and we're going to pick a pivot chart. I usually go to the recommended charts because it'll show you what Excel immediately recommends. But I don't like kind of this plain clustered column graph. So I'm going to go for this 3D cluster column, and I'm going to click OK. Now the data is displayed a little differently this way. So it's displayed in no and yes columns. So we're going to go ahead and roll with this. And honestly, in my opinion, I think the no and the yeses would be better displayed as a pie chart. So for the way that we've arranged the data in this example, I'm going to change this chart. So let's get rid of this. I'm going to change the chart to a pie chart, a 3D pie chart. And what I'm looking for here is you can filter your data too in your chart. So I just want to see the no values. And from the no values, I also want to see all the customer tiers. Now, for some reason, this doesn't always work the way it should. So, and it's probably because I don't have it arranged correctly. Let's see if we can fix that. We might not be able to. We might have to arrange it. We might actually have to do this a different way because for whatever reason, it's only displaying gold. Oh, well, let's go back to our chart up here. I believe there's more tiers that said no. Okay, so gold has no, silver has no, titanium has no. So we should definitely be seeing all of those values here, and we're not. So maybe what we need to do is instead of having that there, what we might need is the customer tier and the values. And nope, that still doesn't change it. All right. Well, that's showing no and yes. But what if we add the customer tier? There we go. So when I added the customer tier to the axis or the X, you can see that it's arranging them by no, gold, silver, titanium, and yes. So let's change this up a different way here. There we go. That's what we're looking for. So these are all the no's, and let's make sure that they match the values over here. So there's 4 golds that are no. There should be 16 silvers that are no and 4 titaniums. And this is valid. So as a pie chart, let's go ahead and change this to just no and see if it keeps our tiers here. Oops. Awesome. It did. All right. And another thing is that we can change this to say no shipping, right? Just say no shipping. You can change the font here as well if you highlight the whole thing. If I can stop clicking it multiple times, we'll get there. You can change the font, the size, the color, black to bold it. And then another thing that I like to do is I like to have these counts on the outside so people can see that right away. I also usually increase that size. So I'm going to leave this as Arial and just change it to a 10. And I'm going to change this to black. Oh, and we should probably bold those, right? Because they're the values. So we're going to drop that down to bold. Click OK. And then here's our tiers here. So what we're going to do is we're going to change these colors. We can change these colors. We're not going to change them here. We're going to change them over here. So I'm going to try to just select that pie slice. I'm going to right click and then I'm going to select a gold color because it's gold. That works. Works for me. And then the next one is silver. I'm trying to just select that silver piece. I'm going to right click and I'm going to select maybe like a grayish color. Maybe like, I think this one might be too light, but that's okay. Let's go for it. That one's too light. One more down. So I don't think I got that right. There we go. And then I'm going to select this last pie slice and we're going to select titanium. Titanium is also kind of silver, I think. So let's just give it a darker gray color, I guess. Which I think is this one. Yeah, that's right. And there we go. There's our chart. And then another thing you can do on this chart is we can get rid of these buttons. You could say hide all filled buttons on the chart, and that looks much better. So now that we have no shipping, what we can do is copy this, and I'm going to try to paste this over here. Looks good. All right. And then now we're going to come back over here. I'm hoping that when I change this value, so we've got to add the buttons back because, now if I can, let's see here. Should be able to add the buttons back. Pretty sure you have to right click on here. Pivot chart options. And then I'm looking to add those buttons back so that we can filter again. I guess I removed those a little too soon. So let me see if this lets us. No, that's not what I was looking for either. It's all right. We'll find it. I just have to play around here. So what we're looking for are those buttons. Or you know, another way to do this is just Control Z, right? It's okay. I think the last thing that we did was remove these. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy this. And I'm going to copy this over to here. And what I don't know is if when now we can hide the buttons on here. And then let's go back over here. And our buttons are still there. So that's awesome. So this graph is clearly just a picture of no shipping. So let's relabel this as no shipping. And then we're going to come back here and we're going to do shipping. So let's filter by yes. We're going to change this to yes. And those should be all the values over here that we see is yes, 8. And as you'll notice that when I filter, it also changes our pivot table over here to reflect the values that we're filtering for. So bronze, again, we're going to make these bigger. I'm gonna say bold, and we're gonna change this to a 10. and black. Okay. And then you can also change these too, which is probably what I should have did too. I'll do that on the other one. Again, right click, we're going to bold this. We're going to say 10. I just type in 10. Otherwise, you have to flip through this up button like 10 times. So I just type the value or the size of the font that I want and click OK. There we go. Much better. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing. So bronze is how many? 20. It's this big slice here. Let's see if we could just select that slice. We're going to right click and then we're going to choose a bronze color, which is kind of like a, I don't know, like a dark gold, I think. So let's go for more colors. So bronze is kind of like this. Kind of like a brown type there. That's like perfect. Now that's like a bronze color. And then we're gonna do the outline with the same. The next one is gold, and that one is orange right here. We're gonna right click. And again, for gold, we're gonna select the gold color. And then the next one is platinum. It's in green right now, but we're gonna select that. You know what? We're gonna select like a light silver. And then the next one's titanium, which I think we made like a dark. See, now when you do this, you gotta be careful because right there I had multiple pie slices selected. Now you can tell I just have the titanium piece selected. Right click. We're gonna go with a dark, like a darker gray for titanium. Perfect. And we need to change this, right? This is yes shipping, not no shipping. Well, we said no shipping. Let's just call this shipping here. That way we know these are the customers that are shipping. And then now we can get rid of these buttons. We're going to hide these buttons. And there you go. So this is shipping. We're going to rename this to shipping. This one's no shipping. And then we're going to also change the font here. Oh, I just realized something. It changed our no shipping to the shipping one. And that's okay. So we'll just delete this. But you get the idea. We can copy this tab too. So if you go to move our copy and we are going to copy shipping, we're going to create a copy and then we're going to move it to the end. Should have the exact same data and it does. Oops, didn't mean to move that. Let's change that back. So we're just going to rename this to no shipping. And I'm going to hopefully find out how we add those buttons back. It's all right. Actually, what we do, we have a trick up our sleeves, right? And that trick up our sleeves, here it is. There we go. So to get the filter buttons back on the chart itself, you just click this button up here. I just learned something today, and that was it. Okay, so now we can filter right on our chart here. And we're going to change this one to no. And then when I change this to no, what I'd like to do is go over here. Okay, it didn't change it. So the reason it didn't change it on this graph this time is because it's a complete copy of the pivot table and the chart on its own tab. So when we did that, again, it changed it. We're going to just change this to say no. The changes this time will be a lot quicker because we know what we're doing. Right click, we're going to change this to gold. This is silver. So we're going to make it that light gray. I think it was this one. Okay, that one might look a little dark. There we go. And then titanium is the darker gray, which I think we went with like this. It really doesn't matter. There. And then we're going to change these back. Go to font. We're going to bold these, make this 10, and change it to black. Done. And then we're going to hide these buttons again. Boom, we're done. So now we have the no shipping customers by tier, and then we have the shipping customers by tier. These are the customers that are shipping. These are the customers by tier that are not shipping. And the one last pivot table example I wanted to show you was what's the best chart to use when you have a customer tier that has multiple values, more than 2 or 3, and you have another field that you also want to display on a chart with those values. Usually the best way to display that is a column chart. So let's insert our pivot table again. We're going over to the orders tab. We're going to scroll up. We're going to click in A1, hold shift and control down, right arrow, and click the right arrow, and then click while holding the shift and control, click the down arrow. There's all our data, and just click OK, and it pops us back on that last tab here. And then what we're going to do here is we're going to display the customer tiers and shipping or not shipping all on one graph so that you can see it all in one. And I think the best way to do that is with a column chart. So we're going to start by putting our shipping as a column, and our customer tier should be a row. And then we're going to count the number of shipping. We're going to count the number of yes and count the number of no's, basically, is what we're telling it to do when we're telling it to count here. And now that we have our values here, I'm going to highlight just the values that we're interested in displaying a graph for. I'm going to go to insert. So I just highlighted the values that we want to create a chart for. I'm going to go to recommended charts, and immediately you'll see Excel also went straight to the cluster column as the recommended chart. Because honestly, that is the best way to display data when you've got 2 fields that you're trying to display that have multiple values. And so I always go for the 3D cluster column. Let's click OK. Here's our chart. Let's make it a little bit bigger. Okay, so in this one, we have a yes and a no. And then here's our values here. So I always like to call out the data points or the data labels so that people can see what those values actually are. Now, since we have 2 values here, that's why it only shows the orange values. We're going to make them bold, change this to a 10, and select black. Click OK. We're going to do the same for the no values. Click font. We're going to change this to bold. Select, type in 10. Click black. Click OK. We're going to do the same for our text values here. Again, bold, 10, black, OK. And then here. Now, one thing I probably should do a little research on is there's probably a way to set these values up by default, so you're not always changing the font. So I will try to figure that out the next time we do something in Excel like this. Black, okay. And there, it's much readable. And so what should our chart title be? I don't always add a chart title, but sometimes I like to. How about customer tiers? Tiers by shipping. or shipping by customer tiers. That sounds a little better, I think. And it's kind of weird how it messed up our font. I don't know why it does that. Very weird, but let's just go select Arial again. Our value is 10, and we want that to be black and bold. And actually, honestly, since this is a title, it should probably be a little bit bigger. So we'll go ahead and make that 12. So here's our graph. And if you want, again, we could play with the yes values, the colors. You could right click. And for yes, let's say we want green. We want to display green. I was like, go. Yes. And for no values, right click. And let's make that red. And there, that really stands out now. Now we can definitely see which customer tiers are have chosen to ship. And in the customer tiers, we can see the ones that chose not to ship. It's weird that bronze all chose to ship and silver chose not to ship. If I could talk here. And then we're going to right click and hide these values, these buttons again. And that's it. Well, I hope you enjoyed this week's tech tip. And I hope you, if you like these videos, please subscribe. And I will see you next week. Have a good rest of your week.